Thank you.
Okay. Shall I present myself and I start? Just a second, because I saw. Shall I start?
Sure,
Yes,
of course.
thank you.
Okay. Hello, my name is Teodora Bozheva. I am the General Manager of Berry Process Agility, training, Kanban training and consultancy company in Bilbao. And we are working with all our clients on developing agility. And from this year, most of our clients are asking also for developing business resilience, organizational resilience. And this is really the most important concern for the companies this year. And that's why I'm excited to talk with you about this topic and to present you our experience and how we see this work, the work on this topic in the companies. Okay. This year is an interesting year, strange year, and we are observing some things that are happening in the companies which were not expected. For example, with respect to digital transformations, they happen quickly. They happen quickly because they are not optional. In the second week of March, all the companies, due to the lockdown in Spain, were sent their people home, working from home office, and that's why the digital transformation simply had to happen immediately. They were not optional at that time. And even companies, very large companies with thousands of employees who had never thought before that they might have to provide facilities for their employees to work from home, they had to do it in a very short time in order to continue the business of the companies. Okay. Something similar happened to agile transformations, because most, if not all of the organizations were conducting agile transformations at that time, but the effect was slightly different. What happened in the companies is that they revisited their approach to implementing agile and conducting the agile transformations. What they started revising is whether they were interested in continuing developing agile teams, introducing agile practices in teams, and we see that the companies are now a lot less patient about seeing the effects of the agile transformation, seeing the results that these transformations bring to the business of the companies. And also the companies are now more interested and more concerned about developing the resilience of the business than simply introducing agile practices. We are very often in conversations with senior level management who are saying we have invested lots of money in introducing agile practices to the teams, and really we do not see any effect at business level. This is what concerns us right now, and we want to see real benefits, economic benefits as a return from this investment in introducing agile into organizations. Having agile teams in the organizations does not make an agile organization as a whole. This is one of the set conclusions that lots of organizations made very shortly after the lockdown this year. They realized that even though some agile teams might be quick, might be fast in responding to customer expectations, delivering their projects, delivering their services, as a whole the organization is not agile, because between the teams the work does not happen so quickly, and as a whole, in fact, we cannot talk about the team of teams, because there is no collaboration, often there is no communication between the teams, and this coordination which is expected from all the teams together in order that the organization responds in an agile manner quickly to the expectations of the customers simply does not happen, or it happens very rarely. But we are every day meeting companies who see this as a problem, as a challenge in their organization. That's why I'm pretty confident and sure that this is still a problem in lots of organizations. When we talk with them, when we talk with the teams and with leaders of the agile teams, we see that there is either a purpose which is not quite clear for the organization, or simply there is a lack of common purpose, and therefore the organizations are acting in a way which we would rather describe as a misalignment between the teams. Also, another problem which we see in the organizations is that the teams, the agile teams, have in fact very little autonomy in decision making. So in fact, they are free to organize themselves about how they can conduct the work, but not that much about what they have to do first, what they have to do next, and which is the best way to respond to customer expectations. So what we are seeing in organizations who have invested a lot in developing agile teams is that, yes, they do have teams who apply agile practices, but they cannot say that as a whole they are an agile organization. And going further, even if we see some signs of an agile organization, we are still, or this organization admit that they are still far from what we would call a resilient organization. They still have difficulties in sustaining the basic business functions. And that was something which was very well seen in March, April this year. They had difficulties in maintaining the feedback systems, the communication systems that ensure the coordination within the teams, between the teams at different levels of management. So this is an important problem and challenge for the companies since the lockdown this year. Also, we started seeing that at the business level, at senior executive level management, it's difficult to reach agreement about which are the priorities of the business. And now that there is a limited ability to implement all the objectives that were previously defined in their annual business plans, they need difficulties in deciding, really in making a triage decisions and deciding what is the most important thing we have to do this month or this trimester, and what we are going to focus on during the next trimester. So these are management decisions which are difficult to take in the companies. This is again a sign of lack of resilience in the organization. Sustaining this ability to operate the business, sustaining the ability to get right feedback, quick feedback about from the systems and from the market, from their customers, and making quick decisions are important to be well introduced, well established, and sustained even during disruptive events, disruptive situations. So what we are seeing in lots of organizations, the stress due to the pandemic was very high, and for many of them, they really went back and tried to survive anyway, but it was really a challenge to sustain these capabilities. So developing organizational agility and resilience is very high objective, very important objective for most of the organizations. But if we think well about what it means, we will realize that it's in fact about bridging this gap between how we see our organization, what we want to see as a way of working, as a way of living in the organization, as abilities of the organizations to achieve the business goals, and the way how all the things really happen. So it is about connecting what we aspire about our business and how it really looks like. Therefore, the decision for achieving organizational agility and organizational resilience is really a strategic decision, and it's a management job. we cannot expect that introducing agile practices at teams, we are going to develop these capabilities at company level. However, as a result of all the conversations that we have had and we still have with lots of organizations this year, we see that there are several concerns that repeat and that we see in all or most of the organizations. The responsibility of the managers is very high. They are carrying lots of workload and lots of responsibilities on their shoulders. Therefore, we often see that although they realize that developing organizational agility and resilience is important, they fear of the risk to lose control because they cannot afford losing control right now in this critical situation for their business. So it's this understanding that, yes, now it's the time to make management decisions that will ensure that the business will continue ahead. But on the other side, they are very concerned with the risk that taking a new way of management, applying new practices might affect to the business. Okay, so this fear of the risk of losing control and this feeling of lack of security, security in applying new management practices is something which we see common in all the companies. And also, in several companies, not all of them, it's not necessary to happen in your company, of course, but we see situations when the management team understands that the job of developing agility and resilience at business level is a team job. It's not just one person taking the responsibility for developing all these skills, but in this management team's job, sometimes we see relationships between people, like normal human relationships that are rather not very favorable or make it more difficult to start these initiatives like this of this type and to introduce new management practices, to introduce new way of thinking and working in the organizations. Again, not necessarily this happens in all organizations, but in the companies where we see this effect, we find that it's more difficult to introduce new way of management in the companies. And here I would like to pay your attention to some of the elements or some of the practices which we have seen very useful and giving good results in the companies. The first one is the practice of introducing visibility and start managing the end-to-end flow. Okay, for those of you who have a little bit of knowledge or information about the Kanban maturity model, you will immediately see that this is maturity level 2 organization. And I want to share with you what we have seen in organization during the last years, not only this one, and why we find it important. When we talk about visibility, providing visibility and starting to manage the end-to-end flow, in fact, we mean about seeing and realizing what is the real situation in the organization. Okay, and we refer to seeing the work that is being conducted, not the process map. I highlight this because, especially in initial conversations with organizations, we often get the response that, yes, oh, we have our process defined, we have made a value stream mapping of flow, we have flow charts, we have manuals about how the process has to be conducted. However, the situation is very different, and you will see this right now when you look simply at the map and when you look at the reality which is in your company, in your processes every day. For example, you can see here on the left, which is the map of this process, of a company, of IT department, of a company that manages like 3,000 people at the moment of making this work here. But when you see the work which is conducted through this process, the situation is visualized on the picture on the right. And something very interesting, in fact, the process, the map which you see on the left side is the process and the work which is registered in their system, and this is the work only visualized in the first two rows of the Kanban board. Okay, so this is the yellow rectangle which you see. However, the work which you see in the red rectangle, just below the yellow one, is the work which these people had for their spare time, for their free time, for when they just wonder what to do, they had this work. Interestingly, 80% of the work this team of 12 people was really doing is the work from the bottom part of the Kanban board, the red rectangle, and this work is not registered in any system of the company. This means that the company was making decisions about what this department was doing, what was the capacity of the department, how much work they were capable of doing or not, only based on the information which you see on the first two rows. And something even more interesting about this case, you can see in this orange rectangle that in fact 90% of the work is in progress. Okay, so these first two columns which you see that say queue system information and the queue for the system information today is the only work which is in fact postponed for a while, and it's in the queue for getting in progress. And the rest of the work, 90% of the work is in progress. In this situation, on this board, we have 229 tickets for 12 people. This means 19 tickets per person. This is the real situation that a manager, the director of this department is facing and has to resolve. And if you only look at the process map, yeah, you will see how the process should work, but in fact, it does not reveal the real situations, and therefore the decisions that are taken only looking at the process map or looking at the reality are completely different. So the first thing nowadays, if you are interested in developing this quickness in taking right decisions and responding adequately to your customers, it's seeing the real situation of the processes and the work in progress. Okay. Similar situations that is coming from the finance department of BBVA. You know that their case study is chapter 4 of the Kanban book. You will see a process which is apparently simple, only 3 steps here, but in fact on the picture on the right, you see the real situation of the process. And of course, again, the decisions one takes only looking at the map of the process or the real, the board with the work are completely different. You can pay attention to this red rectangle, which you see here on the board, and this is the column of the work waiting on others. So all these tickets that are here are work items that are sent to other teams, and the team who is working with this board, this is end of 2017, so quite some time ago. That was the starting point, in fact. But you can see that they already were visualizing lots of dependencies on other teams, be it from the same business unit or from other business units or from external organizations. So a very simple process, in fact, could be a very complex one in reality, especially when we are talking about a business like the financial business of a bank, when lots of regulatory requirements must be fulfilled, when there is a big amount, big volume of work that has to be processed and developed in very short time and responded with very high precision. And managing all these dependencies does not make work easier. So when you see again the real situation, you start realizing that only managing a single small process, it's not enough. It is important to understand the situation, to understand the process end to end, to understand how work is developed, and how all the dependencies in these processes affect each other. Because in addition to this process, which you see here, of course, in this area, there were several, well, not several, many other processes that were developing in parallel, and there were dependencies between these processes. The interesting thing is that when the idea of starting managing work end-to-end arose in the finance area of BBVA, the first reaction of the head of business execution was that this will not be easy to happen because we do not have people, we do not have the roles for managing, who manage the end-to-end processes. And it might take us even 5 years to see this happening, managing the end-to-end process in our organization. However, the corporate agile coach was very confident that this would happen earlier, because he said, nobody can say no to managing work. So the reason and the reason for which, or the fact that made it easier for the head of business execution to really introduce the management of end-to-end processes was that we were not talking about new structures, we were not talking about new roles, we were not changing the responsibilities of the people, but we were interested in, or they were interested in, introducing, in understanding what is happening and how the work is developed end-to-end. That's why it was important to see and start managing the work end-to-end. And the corporate agile coach was right, of course. Less than 6 months after they had the idea of introducing this end-to-end flow management, they had the first end-to-end process. Less than a month later, the second one, then the third one. So indeed, if the company is interested in effectively managing the work from the idea or from the point they receive the work request from a customer until the last moment in the process when it's delivered, when the work is delivered to the customer, it is important to see and start managing the work end-to-end in order to understand what happens and make these adequate decisions. In addition to this, especially in organizations in which they already have introduced some agile practices in the teams, you will see that the teams themselves start asking at some moment for the possibility to manage more effectively dependencies between teams, to have visibility on what the other team is doing in order to be able to collaborate between the teams, in order to be able to cooperate in the development of larger projects or larger services. So it makes sense a lot to the business management of the organizations to take advantage of this favorable context, which is already created in organizations who have invested and who have developed agile teams, to start creating these team of teams, or start managing the dependencies between teams in order to accelerate the workflow, in order to accelerate the delivery of products and services to their customers. In the Kanban maturity model, we have defined guidance for implementing Kanban practices together with cultural values, and in order to obtain better results. And this is a case which is very interesting for me, and I would like to tell, which I had like a year and a half ago. I met the senior chief executive officer of an industrial company, and during our first meeting, he told me, we need to improve the competitiveness of our business. That's why I see that we have to improve the project management. But this means that we have to change the culture of the organization. We have to change the thinking of the organization. Therefore, I'm interested in Kanban. At that time, this manager didn't know anything about the Kanban maturity model. And what really struck me was that he named the 3 pillars of the model, and he was really, in one sentence, he explained our idea, which we have, David Anderson and I have always had about the model and the use of the model in the companies. This is the idea of using together, developing together the culture of the organization with the practices, with the Kanban management practices, and demonstrate the effect of this in terms of better business outcomes, better business results for the organization. And in fact, the culture is the enabler for the introduction of the management practices, but on the other side, the practices sustain the culture and they make sure that the culture doesn't go back. So we continue developing and building this culture of agility, resilience, and this way of thinking on the purpose of the organization and how we want to see the way the people live in the organization. So what is the culture of the organization? So I was really surprised from this statement of this chief executive officer. He was interested in Kanban for that reason. And well, he knew about the Kanban maturity model later, but the most important thing in this case was that he was the guy in the company who was really pushing, leading, introducing this way of thinking, this way of Kanban management. He was the guy who was working together with the director of the project management officer, with the project managers, with all the people in the departments in order to make sure that they understand why they were introducing the Kanban practices, what they wanted to achieve, how they were measuring, why they were believing that Kanban is the appropriate method for them, and that will help them first to see benefits, to see reduction of delays in their projects, and afterwards gradually to demonstrate them, to see them a more competitive business. So I believe, yeah, you will not be surprised, but I really believe that the Kanban maturity model is a good guidance for developing agility and resilience in organizations. And the way we introduce all the practices and cultural change in the organization is ingrained in the model architecture. We always start, you see the values, we always start with the values. This is what leads the change initiatives in the organization, but all these values are appropriately combined with practices for at each maturity level described in the Kanban maturity model. So in order to make sure that even in disruptive events like the COVID pandemic, organizations are capable to sustain their functions and to keep operating their business, therefore we have defined in very many details practices related to visualizing work, visualizing end-to-end work, metrics that help making decisions, metrics that help understand the business and whether this business is really fit for the purpose it exists, whether it meets the expectations of the customers, practices that help the companies make triage decisions, practices that help the companies address adequately risks at service level, risks at project levels, and of course risks at business level. And something very important for developing the capabilities of a resilient organization is the sustainment of the feedback systems, of the feedback loops in the organizations. Therefore, in the model you will see practices related describing all Kanban cadences at all levels. So you can see starting from the team level, making the Kanban meeting, replenishment meeting, delivery planning meeting, afterwards getting deeper, how to conduct service request review, service delivery review, how to use the flow metrics, how to use the fit for purpose metrics, how to conduct operations review to make sure that the business keeps operating even in drastic changes like the pandemic this year, how to make risk review in order to make sure that to ensure the business continuity. So all these practices, you will see them in the model, and of course up to the strategy review. And all these feedbacks, they ensure this link and the continuous flow of information and feedback between all the levels in the organization. So really essential for developing agility and resilience nowadays and always. And in addition, in the model, we are not proposing like a big bang approach. We want to address these risks, these concerns of the management that we are making a very important strategic decisions. We are leading our companies to a new way of thinking, new way of managing the work, but this cannot be done just from one day to the other. We cannot say that on Monday we will have a new way of thinking and working in the company. That's why in the architecture of the model, we will see transition level practices and consolidation level practices. The transition level practices help organizations to see, to realize what is most appropriate now in this stage of their evolution to develop. And then the consolidation level practices help them consolidate, make more, achieve more solid results and see outcomes, better business outcomes. Okay, so this is what we see, what we have introduced in the Kanban maturity model. I started this presentation telling you that the digital transformations happened because there was no option in March this year. So take advantage for the organizations who are interested in developing agility and resilience for their business. Take advantage of all these changes that are happening in the area of digital tools that you are using for your business, for your organization, and use tools that are appropriate for Kanban, designed for Kanban, that will really make easier the work of your people, that will make easier the collection of the metrics, the decision making based on data. Okay, so take advantage of all these things that are happening together and affect how the organizations are working. And last thing, not least, but last, is introduce these skills, these abilities in the organizations to make decisions based on thorough understanding of the context. And this is a third story. It's coming from one of the largest insurance companies in Spain. The head of software development told me like 2 weeks ago, and the software development department is quite a large one. There are like 500 people working in the headquarters and many software factories working together with them. So quite a big department with very high responsibility. In fact, they are in the core, in the key of the development of the business of the company. And she told me that they started with Kanban in the end of 2018 because they were seeking for a method that they will be able to adapt easily without making drastic changes in the organization. And now they decide to continue with the Kanban maturity model because for a first time they have a good understanding what is really happening, how work occurs in the company. Because now they have this information about the status of their projects at all levels of the organization. So this is very important, not only for the teams, not only for the project managers, not only for the directors of the business units. It is important for the senior, for the executive management of the company, because now they can see really what is happening, what is the capacity of the organization, what is the capability of the business, what is the demand, how many ideas they are generating, and whether it's really feasible to implement all the ideas that they are creating. And if it's not feasible, then it's time to prioritize and to make right decisions from business point of view. So this is what is motivating them to continue evolving with the Kanban maturity model. In my opinion, this is a very right and very sound decision. So what we are seeing in this organization, it's not simply implementing Kanban practice by practice and getting deeper step by step. We are seeing a big change in the organization, and most important, we are seeing changes in the behavior of the managers. We see how they are growing as managers and how they are every day they are more capable of developing and leading a resilient business. So this is kind of the key of the message, my thoughts, which I wanted to share with you. So in this new reality in which we are living already, it's the right moment for the companies either to push back to all management practices and hope that they will survive, or be brave and take further their agile teams using the Kanban maturity model, using the tools that they are introducing because all the digital transformations are in place, and using this favorable context which is created because the teams themselves are asking for working in a more collaborative and more cooperative manner. And in this way, the organizations can develop really agility at business level, develop resilience at business and organizational level. So this is what I wanted to share with you, and I will be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you very much, Teodora. Great presentation. Great.